Hello everyone, welcome to the daily newspaper analysis of the Shankar IAS Academy, brought to you by the Civil Media team, and this is Abhinaya Sampath for today's article discussion on current affairs for the date of 28th of December 2024. So displayed here are the list of important articles that we would be discussing for today. The first article discusses about the importance of unincorporated sector in the non-agricultural establishments and the importance of the national statistics system, and this article is from Indian Express. The next article discusses about the household spending and consumption expenditure and the trends which can be analyzed through the survey, and this article is from the Indian Express. The next article would be discussing about the National Company Law Tribunal and the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016. This article is from the Hindu. And finally, the last article would be discussing about the Brahmaputra River, and this article is from the Hindu. So without any much further delay, let's get into the articles discussion one by one. Now moving on to the first news titled Brahmaputra Dam will not affect India Bangladesh by China. So this article discusses about the $130 billion dam project which should be constructed on the Brahmaputra River in Tibet, and there are a lot of security, safety and environmental concerns raised by the downstream countries, that is the India and Bangladesh, regarding this project. So China defends that there won't be any harm to the country's ecosystem, and at the same time the project has been taken up for reasons like to tackle the climate change, to boost in their hydropower sector, and at the same time bringing hydropower disaster management system. So in light of this article, we would be seeing the basics about the drainage system of India, about the Brahmaputra river system and few concepts associated with it. So first let us see what is the drainage system of India. The term drainage system means flow of water through well-defined channels. So the network of well-defined channels would be known as the drainage system of India. The drainage system of India is divided into few categories. The first category would be the Himalayan drainage system. The second category would be Indus River drainage system. The third category would be Ganga River drainage system. Fourth one would be the Brahmaputra drainage system, and fifth one would be the Peninsular drainage system. So these categories, Himalayan, Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra, are known to be as the drainage system of the northern plains, and the Peninsular River drainage system is known to be the drainage system of the southern of India. So looking into the peninsular drainage system, it has been divided into two categories through the flow of river or the water. So there are two rivers which flow towards the west side of the peninsular, and there are rivers which will be flowing in the right side of the peninsula, that is the west flowing rivers and the east flowing rivers. So there are two west flowing rivers of the peninsular drainage system. First one would be Narmada and Tapi, and the rest of the east flowing rivers in the peninsular system would be Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri and Mahanadi. So these are the system, these are the major rivers when it comes to the peninsular drainage river system. Now while looking into this article, there would be few terms which should be told in the article. So let us see few concepts before moving into the article. So the word distributary means a river that branches off from the larger river. So this is the larger river, and rivers which branches off or separates from the major river would be known as the distributary. And the term tributary mean rivers which would be joining the larger river or the major river would be known as the tributary. Now looking into the term drain, so the rivers which finally reach the shore or the sea would be known as drainage. So there are two ways through which the rivers of India would having their drainage. The first one would be in the Arabian Sea, and the second one would be in the Bay of Bengal. So almost 77% of the river systems in the India are having their drainage in the Bay of Bengal, and 23% of the rivers are having their drainage in the Arabian Sea. Now looking into the term perennial river, Perennial river means a river which runs throughout the year, that is they won't get dry throughout the year due to melting of the glaciers and also the rainfall. So this is the term called perennial river. Whereas non-perennial river means a river which won't be running throughout the year and it has the capability to dry during the mid of any year. So they are backed up only by the rainfall in the country. So the the Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra are almost perennial in nature, whereas the peninsular rivers are almost non-perennial in nature. So these are the concepts when it comes to knowing any drainage system or river system in India. And the perennial river are all mostly fed by the monsoon regime. So I hope the concepts are clear. Now let us move on to the basics of Brahmaputra River. So Brahmaputra River is one of the most largest river in the world. They are known to be the transboundary river, that is any river which flows through two or more countries. Now looking into the origin from the Angsi Glacier, which is in the Mount Kailash region near the Mansarovar Lake. So in Tibet, they are known to be Yalang Sangpot River, which means purifier in nature. So there is a lot of confusion when it comes to the origin of Brahmaputra. Almost many would be getting confused with the Chemmayungdung glacier, but the original source of Brahmaputra would be the Angsi glacier. So when they enter India, they enter through the Siang and Dihang, and they are known to be Siang and Dihang in the Arunachal Pradesh. So in India, the Brahmaputra river is passed through Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Sikkim, West Bengal and parts of Meghalaya and Nagaland also. So after India, in India it flows through the southwest. Here when they join the Bangladesh near the Dubri, it merges with the Ganga where they are known to be Jamuna there. So Brahmaputra is nothing but has a meaning called the son of Brahma. Now looking into their total length, they are almost 2900 kilometer, and their basin area, which is very large, which has almost 5,80,000 square kilometer and has basins in China, India and even in Bhutan and Bangladesh. So the river, Brahmaputra river is known to have a lot of braided channels and a lot of riverine islands. So riverine islands are islands which are formed near the river or on the river, and Majuli, which is one of the most largest riverine island in the world, can be found in Brahmaputra river. Now looking into their right bank tributaries, Dibang, Kameng and Teesta would be their right bank tributaries, and left bank tributaries would be Lohit, Subansiri, Manas and Buri Dihing. Now we have seen the physical features of the Brahmaputra river. Now we will be seeing the physiography around the Brahmaputra river. So the first one would be the Tibetan plateau where the origin is. Here they are known to have high altitude and deep gorges and sparse vegetation. So the difference between a valley and a gorge would be, valley would be low lying land between a hill or a mountain, whereas gorges would be known to be having a narrow or a steep, which are mounted by two sides of the mountains, which are formed due to the erosion. Now looking into the eastern Himalayas physiography, they are known to have rugged and dense forests. They are also known to have heavy rain and erosion at the same time. Looking into the Assam Valley, they are known to have fertile plain and alluvial soil, which are very important for the agriculture, such as the tea plantations. And next one would be the Ganges Delta, which are low lying in nature and they are prone to floods and cyclone. Now looking into their climate and rainfall conditions, they are monsoonal in nature. They have heavy rainfall, especially during the month of June to September, and Assam are having the highest rainfall, which can be almost 2000 to 6000 millimeter in nature. So I hope the concepts are clear. Now let us move on to the mains question. The Brahmaputra originates from the Angsi Glacier and in the Himalayas near Mount Kailash. It enters India through Arunachal Pradesh, where it is called Tangpo. Which of these statements are correct? only option A is correct. Now moving on to the next article titled Unlocking the Potential of India's Unincorporated Sector. So this article discusses about the importance of having status and needs of the unincorporated sector in the non-agricultural establishments to have their impact in policy making, research and for the public. So in light of this article, we'll be discussing what is unincorporated sector and about the national statistical system. First, let us see what is unincorporated sector. So these are involvement of the private businesses which are not legally registered as companies. So they are known to be informal setup in nature, and they can be as a partnership or a sole proprietorship also. So for example, they are companies which are not registered under any law, for example as the Companies Act. So whatever contribution that the unincorporated sector would be giving won't be counted as a profit or won't be counted as a contribution in the GDP. So it fails both the profit as well as the effort of workers in that sector. So this sector employ only fewer than 10 workers in nature. So I hope you understand what is unincorporated sector. So the article tries to strengthen this sector through having the involvement of national statistical system. So national statistical system is nothing but a system where there is involvement of collecting large scale data of the socio-economic condition of our country India. So only if there is data to be collected, only if there is documentation of a sector, we can bring in policies, we can bring in research and development, involve technologies for the sector to grow. So through strengthening the national statistical system, we can improve the unincorporated sector. So this is what the article talks about. So in the article, there is formation of the annual survey of unincorporated sector enterprises called the ASUSE. So it is a survey conducted by the National Statistical Office. So the National Statistical Office would be conducting the surveys related to data collection. For example, National Statistical Survey is conducted by the NSSO, and including this survey is also conducted by the NSO. So the NSO comes under the Ministry and Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So I hope these facts are clear. So national statistical system is nothing but bringing in a coordinated framework including institutions, policies, practitioners, research and so on, to have a system to collect, process, analyze and disseminate the statistics of the socio-economic condition or the data of the socio-economic condition of our country India. Now let us see the key indicators of the ASUSE survey. So these are the key focuses or outputs to be given importance. First is penetration of the unincorporated sector in the different industries. That then it helps in the job creation in small enterprises. Next, to have economic contribution of small enterprises, needs of small enterprises, giving loans to those small enterprises and bringing in the use of information and communication technology by small enterprises. So all sample enterprises are requested to cooperate with the enumerators of the National Statistics Office and provide accurate data. So this is the important role. We have to bring in accurate data to strengthen this informal sector to have the capability of being a formal sector. Now let us look into few basics about the National Statistical Office. They were established in 2019. So the National Statistical Office is known to be one of the coordinated bodies when it comes to analyzing the national statistical systems. So they were merged with the Central Statistics Office and the National Sample Survey Office. So before National Statistical Office to be one, before it was separated as Central Statistics Office and National Sample Survey Office. In 2019, these two were integrated or merged with the National Statistical Office, which is currently working right now for the collection of data. So as I told before, they streamline statistical operations in India. So not only National Statistic Office but also National Statistical Commission is the apex body for the advisory role of the national statistical systems. So when it comes to the national statistical system, the National Statistic Officers is the NSO and the NSC are the most important coordinated bodies or regulatory bodies or advisory bodies. Looking into their functions, it's very simple to understand. First, they conduct surveys. As I told before, they undertake the project to bring in data about the large scale socio-economic problems. So for example, consumer expenditure, employment and unemployment are all different fields they would be working in, and they undertake surveys for many social indicators such as poverty. Next is they have national accounts. Through the data found, they would be preparing estimations on GDP, the industrial output, inflation and so on. So they include large scale economies and at the same time macroeconomics. Next, they stand to give a statistical coordination, that is they streamline the data in one way so that there isn't any confusion. They are very important to have policy, their role in policy inputs. And finally, they bring in transparency as they bring in the information of data for the public dissemination. So I hope the topic is clear. Now we will move on to an MCQ. Now looking into the NSO, it functions under the Ministry of Statistics Program and Implementation. It is responsible for preparing India's GDP. It was established by merging the central CSO and NSSO. So of course all these statements are right. Now moving on to the next article titled Household Spending on Food Rises in Rural Areas, Shrinking Gap with Urban Centers. So this article highlights the importance of household consumption expenditure survey which recently happened, and their role when it comes to analyzing the trends and inputs when it comes to household consumption and expenditure. So in light of this article, we'd be seeing the basics on it. First, let us see the household consumption expenditure survey. So this survey is conducted by the conducting authority of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So it is a periodic survey where it is conducted to analyze the household consumption and expenditure patterns and associated impact with it. So household consumption and expenditure is one of the most important key contributor when it comes to the contribution of GDP. So they have their massive role when it comes to macroeconomics. Now looking into their objective, they track the monthly per capita expenditure. So the monthly per capita expenditure is the average expenditure when it comes to the expenditure of the household by an individual. So the formula is the total monthly expenditure of an household divided by the number of individuals. So this is the formula when it comes to finding the monthly per capita expenditure to getting data for the household consumption and expenditure survey. So this this expenditure is conducted on the food and non-food items of both the rural and urban areas. So the data collected through it will help in to analyze the consumption patterns when it comes to the socio-economic conditions of both rural and urban areas, that is to know the spending patterns and so on. So this is the objective of the household consumption expenditure survey. Now let us look into their significance. So the main significance of the survey in general would be to know the trends when it comes to poverty, when it comes to inflation and their impact, and having the idea about inequality when it comes to both prices and both spending when it comes to the rural and urban areas. So this is one of the most important objective when it comes to this survey on the household consumption and expenditure pattern. They also help in bringing establishment of the poverty line. They help in the policy formation which ultimately aims for the food security, inflation, GDP, which are the larger concepts of macroeconomics, and at the same time they help in to tune the existing welfare schemes so that they can help to bring in growth on the household and expenditure pattern. As I told before, the contribution given by the household and consumption and expenditure pattern is one of the important contributors of the GDP and key indicator of the living standards of the consumption patterns. So I hope you have a clear idea about the survey. Now let us move on to the key findings of the report. Here there is a narrowed gap between the urban and rural areas. So from 84 there is a decrease to 70%. It reflects improved rural socio-economic conditions where there is increase of their income and there is an interest in spending their money to have an increase in the food, thus narrowing the gap between rural and urban. Now looking into the spending patterns, food expenditure has increased significantly, thus it suggests rising of the food prices and at the same time prioritization of the food in the rural through their budgets. So in rural there has been a higher spending, whereas in urban there has been a reduced spending. So there is, in urban there is still a slower phase of change compared to the rural areas. Now looking into the top 5% of income earners in both the rural and urban areas, there is a decrease in the food expenditure pattern. Here there is decline in food spending in both urban and rural areas, and this reflects the theory called Engels theory, where when there is higher income there is lower food expenditure share. So knowing the trends or knowing the changes or changes in the economic patterns helps to have policy formation, understanding the socio-economic conditions to have a larger impact. So these are the inputs which can be taken from the report. Now let us see the reasons for the increased food spending. First is having rising food increases. So because of the rise in the inflation, there is increase of price level in the products like the cereal, pulses, vegetables and edible oils. So along with the price rise, there is also rise in the cost of production eventually. So in rural areas especially, more than seen as a negative thing, there is a positive change in people accepting the cost of production and putting the effort in bringing a price stabilization through their spending. So that is the reason for increased food spending. Next is, it eventually brings in improved rural incomes. So through the government schemes such as the Manrega, the midday scheme, the PDS system, that is the public distribution system, have a larger impact in the increase of income when it comes to the rural areas especially. And there is agricultural improvements and increase in the wage growth, ultimately leading their interest when it comes to spend of money in the food. Next is having inflation in rural consumption basket. Here there is higher dependence of both production and consumption when it comes to the local markets in the rural areas. So along with the production, it ultimately increases their food spending. So people are wantedly and willingly ready to spend their income in the food items even though the prices are high. So this brings us the change in knowing the socio-economic conditions. Here the change is, first there is greater awareness on the nutrition, and at the same time there is importance for dietary products and so on. For example, the importance of organic products, especially the rural engagement is very important when it comes to organic products. So we can analyze and we can see how there is change and differences in the consumption and expenditure patterns along with the rural and urban areas and along with the spending patterns. So it is nothing but in larger significant way, as I told before, it helps to know the GDP patterns and helps to know the larger socio-economic conditions. So I hope the topic is very clear. Moving on to the next article titled the NCLT, that is National Company Law Tribunal, directs the initiation of insolvency proceedings against the Hero Electric. So insolvency is nothing but a financial distress where they are not able to pay the debts. So in light of this article, we'll be seeing basics about the NCLT and the insolvency law associated with it. Now looking into the National Company Law Tribunal, it is a quasi-judicial body. So a quasi-judicial body means it is non-judicial authorities which have the authority to interpret the law. So even though they are non-judicial bodies, they have the right to be interpreted under any law. So the National Company Law Tribunal is a quasi-judicial body, and they deal with company disputes and any insolvency problems. So since they are non-judicial bodies, they still have the right to be implemented or interpreted under the law, and they are under the Companies Act of 2013 and also under the law of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016. So these non-judicial bodies are interpreted under these two laws, making it them their quasi-judicial body. So their important role is to simplify the dispute resolutions during any problems and bringing in a time bound processes and resolutions, that is timely justice. Now looking into their key provisions. So here first, they are established under the section 408 of Companies Act of 2013 and they were effective from 2016. That is, they came into force from 2016. Now looking into their functions, first they resolve the corporate disputes, both the mergers and demergers, and bring in a resolution for the mismanagement cases. So here for example, mergers would be one or two companies which would be getting into a larger companies, or demergers would be known as the breaking of the larger companies into different components. So they include everyone, which is the mergers and demergers who are involved in any corporate disputes. So there is inclusivity of every stakeholders present. They also handle matters under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code law. So they bring in resolution for the insolvency problems. So looking into their structure, they involve judicial members, that is the judges, and technical members, that is for example corporate law experts. So any appeal related to the National Company Law Tribunal, they are directed to the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal or Supreme Court also. Now looking into their powers, they bring in a time bound resolution, that is within 330 days under the IBC, that is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016. So any insolvency processes need to be concluded within the 330 days. Now looking into their powers, first is their liquidation of the insolvent companies. So liquidation of companies is nothing but bringing an end to a company and distributing their assets to the claiming stakeholders. So this is known as the liquidation when it comes to a company. So they involve in the liquidation of insolvent companies. They approve restructuring and settlements plan, and they also adjudicate, that is bring in the legal input for the through their penalties for Companies Act who are non-compliance in nature. So non-compliance is nothing but anyone who doesn't comply with any law or rule or something. So they bring in penalties for any non-compliance matters for companies when it comes to any insolvency issues or corporate distresses and so on. They also bring in protection, that is the moratorium, that is temporary suspension of any legal proceedings. So if they have to give in any protection to a company, they bring in the policy of a moratorium where there is temporary suspension or stopping of any legal proceedings on that particular company. So they don't have the need to be answerable or given any amount or claims or assets and so on. So this protection helps the companies to be getting protected from any lawsuits. Now looking into the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016, here they resolve financial distress of the companies, individuals and also partnerships. Here also they bring in time bound manner resolutions. They also have the creditor protection, and finally it strengthens their business environment. Looking into their key features, first is having a fast resolution, thus it ultimately brings in a ease of doing businesses. Their time bound period as usual is 330 days, which also include their legal proceedings. Now, looking into the insolvency resolution process, they appoint a professional who looks into the knowing of the company's health, that is financial in nature, and they try to bring in a recovery plan. So, looking into their stakeholders, they include the operational creditors who are the suppliers, and at the same time, they include the financial creditors, which can be banks in nature. So, looking into the process and authorities, again they have the protection of moratorium where they can freeze on the lawsuits or debts recovery in a temporary manner. They can bring in the process of liquidation where there is asset sale if their resolution fails. So, if they are not able to protect the company, or if any company is being on the IBC law, they can bring in the asset sale. Looking into the adjudicating authorities, the cases are heard by the National Company Law Tribunal for the companies, and the cases are heard by Death Recovery Tribunal for any individuals and partnerships. So, the appeals would be automatically going to the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal or the Supreme Court. So, I hope these are the basics when it comes to the NCLT as well as the IBC. So, let us move on to a question here. What is the main function of the National Company Law Tribunal? First is resolving disputes, conducting criminal trials, managing public sector banks, and regulating the stock market. So, of course, the first one is the answer. I hope you are at the end of this video. Don't forget to give a like, comment, and a share. And to further not to miss any other contents, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and have a nice day.